A child is in the house. Nothing important is happening. No lesson, no lecture, no warning. Money is being discussed, but not with the child in mind. That's the point. At the table, someone mentions an expense. No one reacts. Later, someone mentions income. Still no reaction. There is no excitement, no relief, no tension. The child notices this before they understand why it matters. In many homes, money changes the atmosphere. Voices tighten, energy shifts, emotion enters the room. Children feel it immediately. Money means pressure. Money means fear. Money means urgency. Rich parents do not teach this, not because they don't care about money, but because they don't let money control tone. In wealthy households, money conversations sound flat, not cold, controlled. This doesn't scale. That's inefficient. We'll wait. No one says, we need this. We're scared. We can't afford that. Children learn something silently. Money is a variable, not a threat. No one sits the child down and explains this. The child absorbs it. And absorption is stronger than instruction. Another day, a parent declines an opportunity. The numbers were good. The timing was fine. But the answer is no. Not because of risk, because of dependency. That puts us in someone else's hands. The child doesn't fully understand, but the pattern repeats. In most homes, adults celebrate income, raises, bonuses, windfalls. In wealthy homes, income is acknowledged, then dismissed. What matters is, how reliable is it? How replaceable is it? Who controls it? Children learn that money without control is fragile, even if it looks impressive. Time behaves differently in these homes. No one rushes. Deadlines exist, but panic does not. Children hear, there's no need to decide today. Let's wait. We'll see. Waiting is not framed as hesitation. It's framed as strength. In other homes, waiting feels dangerous. You'll miss out. Someone else will take it. Hurry. That urgency teaches fear. Rich parents teach timing. At home, rich parents also teach their children how not to talk. They don't announce plans early. They don't explain themselves to outsiders. They don't broadcast progress. Children learn that privacy is not secrecy. It's protection. When children achieve something, the reaction is muted, not dismissive, contained. No overpraise, no performance. See, well done. Keep going. This teaches a dangerous lesson, in a good way. Validation is internal. Mistakes are handled the same way. No yelling, no drama. What happened? What changes next time? Failure is treated as information, not identity. Children grow up unafraid of mistakes, but allergic to chaos. Another quiet lesson appears around questions. Children are allowed to ask, why? Who decides? What happens if? They are not shut down for curiosity. They are guided to think structurally. This is how judgment forms early. Money is also never treated as a finish line. Children hear discussions about flow, access, exposure, dependency. Money is framed as movement, not possession. This prevents obsession later. By the time these children leave home, they are not financial experts. But they are emotionally trained. They do not panic under pressure. They do not rush decisions. They do not seek approval. They are calm, because calm was normal. Most people think rich kids succeed because of money. They don't. They succeed because of conditioning. What rich parents teach at home is not wealth. It is how to exist around wealth without losing control. By adulthood, the difference is obvious. Not in intelligence, not in talent, not even in ambition. In reaction speed. Pressure hits. One person panics, another pauses, one explains, Another observes. One rushes to decide. Another waits, and somehow ends up deciding anyway. This is not personality. It's training. Rich parents teach their kids something brutal early. Urgency is a weakness. Most people don't realize this because urgency feels productive. Fast decisions feel powerful. Quick action feels confident. But urgency almost always benefits the person waiting. At home, rich parents quietly reward restraint. A child hesitates before answering. No one rushes them. They think. They speak carefully. That pause becomes normal. Later in life, that pause becomes leverage. In most homes, children are trained to respond quickly. Answer fast, agree fast, decide fast. Speed is mistaken for competence. Rich parents teach the opposite. They teach children to be hard to rush. Here's what this creates later. When a deal is presented with pressure, only today, last chance, act now. Most people feel anxiety. Rich adults feel suspicion. They were raised knowing something others weren't. If someone is rushing you, it's usually because they're losing control. And another difference appears in how they handle disagreement. Most people argue to win. Rich adults rarely argue. They don't raise their voice. They don't justify themselves. They don't explain every choice. They simply disengage. This drives people crazy, because silence forces the other person to reveal more. Silence shifts pressure outward. Rich parents teach this at home without naming it. When a child argues emotionally, the parent doesn't escalate. They wait. The child runs out of momentum. Lesson learned. Rich parents also teach their kids to separate money from emotion. This is huge. Most people attach feelings to money, fear, pride, shame, validation. Rich parents detach emotion early. A child hears, "This isn't personal. It's just numbers." That didn't work. Now we move on. This creates adults who don't self-destruct over losses. They don't chase revenge success. They don't overspend to prove worth. They stay intact. Another aggressive difference. Rich kids are taught not to explain themselves. This shocks people. In most homes, children are trained to justify, "Why did you do that?" Explain yourself. Defend your choice. Rich parents don't demand constant explanation. They ask, "What's the outcome?" This teaches children that results matter more than narratives. Over-explaining weakens position. Silence is not guilt. As adults, they don't overtalk in meetings. They speak once, or not at all. This is why they often seem intimidating without trying. They're not dominating. They're unavailable for nonsense. Another pattern appears with approval. Most people chase approval unconsciously. Boss approval, peer approval, audience approval. Rich parents don't train children to be liked. They train them to be respected. Children are not praised excessively. No trophies for participation, no emotional inflation, just calm acknowledgement. Well done. Next. This creates adults who don't collapse when ignored. They don't need attention to function. Here's the uncomfortable part. People who need approval are easy to control. They overwork. They overshare. They overreact. Rich parents remove this vulnerability early. Another viral truth. Rich kids are taught that being underestimated is an advantage. In most homes, children are told, "Show them who you are. Prove yourself. Don't let them disrespect you." Rich parents teach, "Let them think that. Watch what happens." This flips the power dynamic. Expectation drops. Pressure disappears. Space opens. The underestimated person moves freely. This is why rich adults often appear calm in hostile environments. They are not threatened by disrespect. They were never trained to need validation. Finally, rich parents teach something most people never hear. Stability beats excitement. Excitement creates stories. Stability creates outcomes. Children see boring decisions outperform dramatic ones. They learn that consistency is louder than hype. By adulthood, the result is obvious. Rich adults. Don't rush. Don't argue publicly. Don't explain unnecessarily. Don't chase approval. They wait. And while others perform, they position. Most people think rich kids succeed because of money. They don't. They succeed because their nervous system was trained differently. Calm beats chaos. Silence beats noise. Position beats effort. By the time someone raised this way reaches adulthood, the difference is no longer subtle. It shows up in how they sit in rooms, how they listen, how they respond when things go wrong. Most people mistake this for confidence. It isn't. It's familiarity with control. Rich parents don't raise children to win every moment. They raise children to stay stable while others lose control. This is why their greatest fear is not failure. It's instability. Failure is an event. Instability is a pattern. Events pass. Patterns compound. Most people are taught to avoid failure. Rich parents teach their kids to avoid fragile systems. A fragile system collapses when one thing goes wrong. So from an early age, children observe something important. Nothing essential depends on one outcome. Not one deal. Not one job. Not one relationship. Not one source of income. This is not paranoia. It's design. Rich parents quietly design life so mistakes are survivable. When something fails, it fails in isolation. The family doesn't panic. Identity doesn't collapse. Reputation isn't destroyed. Children learn something powerful without words. You can recover if you're positioned correctly. This is why risk is treated differently. Most people either fear risk or glorify it. Rich parents assume risk is unavoidable. So the question becomes, what kind of risk can we absorb? What kind of risk teaches us? What kind of risk removes our control? Children raised this way don't chase excitement. They respect consequences. Another difference becomes obvious during crisis. When pressure rises, most people rush. They overreact. They overcorrect. They make emotional decisions to feel relief. Rich adults don't, because they were raised watching calm responses during uncertainty. They learned early that panic is not urgency, it's weakness. This is where margin matters. Margin is space. Space in finances. Space in time. Space in commitments. Space in reputation. Rich parents build margin deliberately. They don't max out. They don't overextend. They don't live at the edge. Children raised with margin grow up calm, not because they're fearless, but because they're protected. Another lesson becomes clear here. Wealth is not stored, it's structured. Money sitting still is exposed. Money inside systems is resilient. Children observe that the same amount of money behaves very differently depending on how it's positioned. They learn that size matters less than structure. Control matters more than accumulation. This prevents obsession with numbers. They focus instead on durability. Rich parents also manage ego early, not by destroying it, but by containing it. Ego is expensive. It pushes people to make decisions for appearance instead of outcome. So praise is measured. Correction is private. Success is not inflated. Children don't grow up needing applause. They grow up needing competence. As adults, this shows up clearly. They don't need to prove themselves. They don't chase validation. They don't escalate conflicts for pride. This makes them extremely difficult to manipulate. People who don't need approval can't be rushed, baited, or controlled easily. Another critical outcome appears: time horizon. Rich parents speak in years, not days. Children hear, "This won't matter later." We'll see how this plays out. There's no rush. Time is treated as depth, not pressure. This creates long-term thinking as a default, not a skill. Most people rush because they feel behind. Rich adults move slowly because they feel positioned. They don't need to win today. They need to still be standing tomorrow. Failure, when it happens, is not treated as identity. It's treated as information. Oh, what did this reveal? What changes next time? Children learn to separate who they are from what happened. This creates resilience without arrogance. They're not broken by loss. They're not inflated by success. Both pass. By adulthood, the result of this conditioning is clear. The calm is trained. The patience is trained. The restraint is trained. What outsiders call confidence is usually structural security. They know where they stand. This explains why wealth often disappears when conditioning disappears. Money without structure is fragile. Opportunity without discipline evaporates. Power without restraint attracts destruction. What rich parents teach at home is not money. It's how to exist around money without losing control. Once you see this, the world looks different. So you stop asking, "How do I make more money?" You start asking, "What weakens my position? What protects my leverage? What survives mistakes?" You stop chasing attention. You start protecting optionality. You stop trying to win fast. You start trying to stay in the game. This shift is quiet. No announcement, no applause. But it changes everything. This is how rich parents teach. Not lessons shouted, not rules written, but patterns absorbed at home, long before money ever shows up. And that is why some families keep wealth, while others keep starting over.